I stared at the empty storage unit, my hands steady despite what I was seeing. 3 years of meticulously organized documentation. Gone. The filing cabinets I'd specifically labeled, "Do not touch legal materials," were missing. The banker's boxes containing thousands of pages of evidence were nowhere to be seen. Looking for your junk? My brother Marcus leaned against the doorframe, grinning. Dad finally did something useful for once. I turned slowly. Where are the files, Marcus? Sold, He shrugged. Well, Dad did. Got like $200 from some recycling place. You should be thanking him, he cleared out all that worthless paperwork you've been hoarding. My phone was already in my hand, but I kept my voice level. Which recycling place? Why do you care? It was just old business stuff from that failed company of yours. Marcus laughed. Mom and Dad were trying to help you move on. You've been obsessing over those boxes for years. It's pathetic, honestly. I stepped out of the storage unit, keeping my expression neutral even as my mind calculated the magnitude of what had just happened. I need to make a call. Yeah, call your therapist, Marcus called after me. Tell them your mean family threw away your precious papers. See if they care. I walked to my car, got inside and closed the door. Then I dialed a number I'd hoped I'd never need to use in an emergency. Special Prosecutions Unit, this is Agent Morrison. Agent Morrison, this is Sarah Chin. I'm the protected witness in the Thornfield Industries case. Evidence Security Code Delta 773. There was a pause. Miss Chin? What's wrong? My family accessed my storage unit without authorization. They've sold approximately 15 filing cabinets and 30 bankers' boxes of case materials to a recycling facility. The original documentation is compromised. Another pause, longer this time. Say that again. The evidence is gone. My father sold it to a recycling center this morning for approximately $200. Jesus Christ. I heard typing in the background. Stay exactly where you are. Do not approach your family members. Do not tell them anything. We're sending units now. Which recycling facility? I don't know yet. My brother mentioned it's local. We'll find it. Miss Chin, do you understand the severity of what's happened? Yes. Those documents represented 3 years of evidence collection for a federal case involving corporate fraud, environmental violations and criminal conspiracy. The monetary value of that evidence in terms of the case we're building exceeds $800,000. Your family has potentially committed obstruction of justice, evidence tampering and theft of federal materials. I understand. Where are you now? In my car outside the storage facility. My brother is still here. Keep him there if possible without engaging. Don't let him know you've called us. Units are 12 minutes out. I ended the call and sat quietly, watching Marcus through the windshield as he scrolled through his phone, completely unaware. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. Heard Dad helped you finally clean out that storage unit. We're having dinner tonight to celebrate your fresh start. 6 p.m. Don't be late. I didn't respond. Marcus finally left the storage unit and walked toward his truck. I waited 5 minutes, then drove to my apartment. I needed to be somewhere neutral when this unfolded. The storage unit situation had started 3 months ago when my lease renewed. My parents had been pressuring me to let go of the past, ever since I'd left Thornfield Industries, the tech company where I'd worked as senior compliance officer. What they didn't know, what I couldn't tell them because of legal protections, was that I hadn't just left. I'd blown the whistle on systematic fraud that went all the way to the CEO. Thornfield had been cooking their books, falsifying environmental impact reports, and defrauding investors of over $40 million. I'd spent 3 years secretly documenting everything. Emails, financial records, internal memos, meeting notes, recorded conversations. I'd worked with federal investigators, wore a wire and compiled evidence while still working there. When I finally left Thornfield and came forward officially, the state and federal prosecutors had been ecstatic. My documentation was meticulous. Every claim was backed by original source materials. But they needed time to build the case. Thornfield's legal team was powerful and the company had connections. So I'd been placed in a protected witness program. Not witness protection exactly, but legal protections. My identity as the whistleblower was sealed. My evidence was classified as state property. And I was explicitly told not to discuss the case with anyone, including family. My parents thought I'd quit because of stress. My brother thought I was having a breakdown. My sister Jennifer, who worked in marketing and worshipped corporate success, thought I was a failure for walking away from such a great opportunity. They'd been trying to help me move on for 2 years. The storage unit was my compromise. I'd moved the evidence out of my apartment to appease them, but kept it secure and accessible for the prosecutors who periodically needed to review materials. I'd labeled everything clearly: legal materials, do not touch. I'd told my family explicitly that the storage unit was off limits. I'd even put my own lock on it. Apparently that hadn't been enough. I was making tea in my apartment when my phone rang. Agent Morrison. Miss Chen, we've located the recycling facility. Units are there now attempting to recover materials. Your father used your spare storage key. Did you authorize that? No. I didn't know he had access to a spare. The storage company gave him one. He told them he was helping his daughter clean out old business papers, showed them his ID with the same last name, and they provided access. We're addressing that security breach separately. How much has been recovered? That's complicated. The facility processes paper quickly. They estimate about 40% of what was brought in this morning has already been pulped. We're documenting everything for evidence, but Miss Chen, this is bad. We've lost original documentation that was critical to the case. I set down my tea, hands steady. The digital backups will help, but original documents carry more weight in court. Defense attorneys will argue chain of custody issues, claim tampering. This compromises years of work. He paused. I need you to come to the field office. Don't go to your parents' house. Don't answer their calls. We're obtaining warrants now. Warrants for what? Obstruction of justice, theft of federal evidence, evidence tampering. Possibly conspiracy if we determine your brother or other family members knew the materials were protected. The recycling facility is cooperating fully. They had no knowledge of what they were processing. My family didn't know either. They thought it was just old paperwork. That's for the courts to determine. The materials were clearly labeled as legal documents. Your father accessed a secured storage unit without authorization, removed materials that didn't belong to him and destroyed them. Intent matters, but so does negligence. At this level, ignorance isn't a defense. I arrived at the federal building 40 minutes later. Agent Morrison met me in the lobby with 2 other people. A woman in a sharp suit who introduced herself as Assistant U.S. Attorney Karen Walsh, and a state prosecutor named David Chen, no relation. Miss Chen, thank you for coming so quickly. Walsh gestured toward the elevators. We need to document everything you remember about the storage situation, your family's access, and any conversations that might be relevant. We went to a conference room filled with recovered files. Papers were spread across tables, many damaged, some barely readable. Investigators in gloves were photographing and cataloging everything. This is maybe 30% of what you provided, Walsh said quietly. The rest is gone. Completely unrecoverable. I looked at the damaged documents. 3 years of my life, late nights copying files, secret recordings, careful documentation. What about the case? We'll proceed, but it's damaged. Thornfield's attorneys are going to have a field day with this. They'll claim evidence spoliation, argue that without the originals we can't verify authenticity of the digital copies. She turned to face me. Your family has seriously compromised a major federal prosecution. They didn't know. The labels said legal materials. The storage unit was locked. Your father had to deliberately seek access he wasn't authorized for. Walsh's voice was firm but not unkind. I understand family loyalty, Ms. Chen, but this isn't a small mistake. This is federal evidence in a $40 million fraud case. The value of that evidence, in terms of what it would have secured in terms of restitution, fines, and criminal penalties, exceeds $800,000. David Chin, the state prosecutor, spoke up. We've obtained warrants for your father, mother, and brother. Your father is being charged with evidence tampering, obstruction of justice, and theft of federal materials. Your mother and brother are being questioned as possible accessories. My mother just texted me about dinner. She doesn't understand. She will shortly. He checked his watch. Officers are executing the warrants now. My phone started buzzing incessantly 20 minutes later. I'd been moved to a private office while agents continued their interviews. My mother's name flashed on the screen repeatedly. Then my father's. Then Jennifer's. Then Marcus's. Agent Morrison knocked and entered. Your brother is already in custody. Your father is being processed now. Your mother is not handling it well. What did they say? Your father maintains he was helping you. Says the files were clearly just old business papers that you were hoarding due to depression. Your brother claims he had no knowledge of the contents. He just knew your father had cleaned out the unit. Your mother is insisting this is a misunderstanding and demanding to speak with you. Can I talk to them? Not advisable. You're a protected witness and they've committed crimes that directly impact your case. Any communication could be problematic. He sat down across from me. Miss Chin, I need you to understand something. This isn't going away. The U.S. Attorney's Office is taking this extremely seriously. Your family has cost the federal government hundreds of thousands of dollars in investigative resources and potentially millions in recoverable assets from the Thornfield case. What happens now? They'll be formally charged within 48 hours. Your father is looking at up to 5 years for evidence tampering alone, plus additional charges for obstruction and theft. If the prosecutors determine your family's actions were grossly negligent rather than intentional, that might reduce sentencing, but they'll still face significant penalties. My phone buzzed again. Jennifer this time. I let it go to voicemail. Your sister is at the station, Morrison added. She wasn't charged, but she's providing a statement. Apparently she's quite upset. The voicemail from Jennifer was 3 minutes of screaming about how I'd called the cops on Dad and destroyed the family over old paperwork. She ended with, I hope you're happy. Mom's having a panic attack and Dad's in handcuffs because of you. I saved it without responding. Walsh came in an hour later with an update. The investigation has expanded. We've discovered your father didn't just access your storage unit. He also entered your apartment last week while you were at work. What? Building security footage. He used a key, went through your home office and removed several boxes of materials. We believe he disposed of those as well. Did you notice anything missing? I thought back to the previous week. My filing cabinet had seemed different. Less full. I'd assumed I was misremembering. Maybe. I wasn't sure. We're adding burglary and additional theft charges. This wasn't a one-time mistake, Ms. Chen. Your father systematically targeted your legal materials over multiple occasions. That suggests intent. He thought he was helping. He thought he knew better than you what you needed. He deliberately accessed secured locations, removed property that wasn't his and destroyed it. The fact that he believed he was helping doesn't change the criminal nature of his actions. Walsh's expression was sympathetic but firm. I understand this is your family. But they've committed serious federal crimes. The arraignment was scheduled for 2 days later. I wasn't required to attend, but I went anyway, sitting in the back of the courtroom wearing sunglasses and a hat. I needed to see this myself. My father looked smaller somehow, standing before the judge in an orange jumpsuit. My mother sat in the gallery, crying quietly. Marcus was being arraigned separately. His charges were less severe since he hadn't directly participated in the removal of materials. Mr. Chin, the judge began reading from the documents before her. You're charged with evidence tampering, obstruction of justice, theft of federal materials, burglary and criminal trespass. How do you plead? Not guilty, Your Honor. My father's voice was steady but strained. I was trying to help my daughter. She's been depressed since leaving her job hoarding paperwork. I was cleaning out her storage to help her move forward. The judge looked up. Mr. Chin, the materials you removed were clearly labeled as legal documents. The storage unit required specific authorization to access. You entered your daughter's apartment without permission and removed additional materials. This court doesn't view that as help, it views it as criminal conduct. Your Honor, I'm a father trying to help his child. You're a defendant who compromised a major federal investigation. The judge's tone was sharp. Bail is set at $100,000. You're prohibited from contacting the witness in this case, including your daughter. Next case. My mother's sobbing grew louder as bailiffs led my father away. Jennifer found me outside the courthouse. I'd been naive to think I could leave unnoticed. This is insane. She grabbed my arm. Dad was trying to help you. You called the FBI over old paperwork. I gently removed her hand. I can't discuss this with you. Can't discuss. Sarah, Dad is facing prison. Mom is falling apart. Marcus has been suspended from his job because of the arrest. And you stand there like none of this matters. It matters. Then fix it. Tell them it was a mistake. Drop the charges. I can't. I didn't press charges. The federal government did. This isn't my case to drop. Because you were too important with your whistleblower bullshit. Jennifer's face was red. You always thought you were better than us. Saint Sarah who quit her fancy job because she couldn't handle corporate reality. And now you're punishing Dad for trying to help you let go of your failure. A man in a suit approached. David Chin, the state prosecutor. Miss Chin, he addressed me, I need you to step away from this conversation. Miss Jennifer Chin, he turned to my sister, you're interfering with a witness. Leave now or you'll be charged. Jennifer stared at him, then at me. This family is done. I hope your precious evidence was worth it. She stormed off. David waited until she was gone. Are you okay? I'm fine. The U.S. attorney wants to meet with you. There's been a development. The development was significant. Thornfield Industries' legal team had filed an emergency motion to dismiss the case, citing evidence spoliation and chain of custody issues. They were arguing that the loss of original documentation invalidated the entire prosecution. They're claiming you intentionally destroyed evidence to cover up falsification, Walsh explained in her office. They're painting you as a disgruntled employee who fabricated documents, and your family's destruction of those documents as convenient timing. That's insane. My family had no connection to Thornfield. We know that. But it creates reasonable doubt. The defense doesn't need to prove their theory, they just need to muddy the waters enough that a jury questions the evidence. So what happens? We fight. We have the digital backups, the testimony of other witnesses, the forensic accounting. But your family's actions have made this significantly harder. She leaned back in her chair. There's something else. Thornfield has resources. They've hired investigators. And those investigators have reached out to your family. What? Your sister Jennifer received a call yesterday from a concerned corporate ethics consultant, who wanted to discuss your case. She apparently told them everything. Your history, your mental state, your family's concerns about your well-being. She has no idea she was talking to Thornfield's defense team. I felt cold. Jennifer gave them ammunition. Exactly. They're going to paint this as a family trying to help an unstable person, and that person retaliating with false federal charges. It's a good narrative. Wrong but good. How do we counter it? We prosecute your family to the fullest extent. We show that their actions were criminal regardless of intent. We demonstrate that the evidence they destroyed was legitimate, protected, and critical to a major case. And we make sure Thornfield understands that this strategy will backfire. Walsh's expression hardened. Your father is facing 30 years combined on all charges. We're going to use that to show how seriously the federal government takes evidence protection. 30 years. You said 5. That was before we discovered the additional theft from your apartment, the burglary charges, and the extent of the damage. The U.S. attorney is making an example of this case. We can't let corporations think they can compromise whistleblowers by going after their families. The news coverage started 3 days later. Local father arrested for helping daughter clean storage unit, ran in the local paper. Federal overreach. Family man faces decades for discarding papers, appeared on a national news website. Thornfield's PR team was working overtime. The articles painted my father as a concerned parent, me as an unstable whistleblower, and the federal government as tyrannical. Comment sections filled with outrage about prosecutorial abuse. Then the government's response hit. Federal Witness Protection Program evidence destroyed in apparent obstruction attempt. New York Times. $800,000 in corporate fraud evidence lost after family member compromises investigation. Wall Street Journal. Thornfield Industries faces expanded charges after evidence tampering incident. Washington Post. The narrative shifted fast. Detailed reports about Thornfield's fraud, the scope of my whistleblowing, and the significance of the destroyed evidence painted a very different picture. The U.S. Attorney's Office released a statement emphasizing that this wasn't about family help. It was about criminal interference with a major federal case. Public opinion turned. My father's bail hearing became a media circus. The judge denied reduction, citing ongoing risk of evidence destruction and witness intimidation. My mother collapsed outside the courthouse. Jennifer gave an angry interview claiming the government was persecuting our family. Then the FBI released footage from the recycling facility showing my father directing workers to destroy specific boxes, laughing and saying, "My daughter will thank me later." The optics were devastating. Marcus took a plea deal first. 6 months in minimum security, 3 years probation, $25,000 fine. He testified that Dad had told him the storage unit was full of junk Sarah was hoarding, and that he'd helped his father get a spare key from the storage company by pretending to be me on a phone call. That added identity fraud to the charges. My mother wasn't charged criminally but faced civil liability. The federal government filed a lawsuit seeking compensation for the lost evidence and investigative costs. The amount, $823,000. My father went to trial. I had to testify. I sat in the witness box and answered questions about the evidence, my role as a whistleblower, the protections on the materials, and my family's knowledge of the situation. "Ms. Chen," the defense attorney asked, "did you ever explicitly tell your father that the materials in your storage unit were federal evidence?" I told him they were legal materials that couldn't be touched. "But did you use the words federal evidence?" "No. I was prohibited from discussing the case details." "So your father had no way of knowing these were protected materials?" The boxes were labeled legal materials, do not touch. The storage unit was locked. He had no authorization to access it. But a concerned father worried about his daughter's mental health might interpret those labels as exactly the kind of hoarding behavior he was trying to help address. Objection, the prosecutor stood. Speculation. Sustained. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing was 2 months later. I didn't attend this time. My father received 12 years, less than the maximum but substantial. Evidence tampering, 5 years. Obstruction, 4 years. Theft of federal materials, 2 years. Burglary, 1 year. All to be served consecutively. The judge's statement was scathing. "Mr. Chen, you didn't just discard paperwork. You systematically destroyed evidence in a major federal case, compromised a protected witness, and potentially allowed corporate criminals to escape full accountability. Your actions were deliberate, repeated, and devastating. This sentence reflects the severity of your crimes and serves as a deterrent to others who might consider interfering with federal investigations." My mother's civil case was settled. She couldn't pay the full amount but agreed to surrender her house and retirement accounts. Total recovered, $340,000. The government wrote off the rest. Jennifer hasn't spoken to me since. Last I heard, she was working on a book about federal overreach and families destroyed by whistleblower culture. Marcus got out after 4 months for good behavior. He sent me one text, "Hope it was worth it." The Thornfield case proceeded despite the evidentiary damage. The digital backups held up in court. Other witnesses corroborated my testimony. The forensic accounting was damning. The CEO got 22 years. The CFO got 15. 6 other executives received sentences ranging from 3 to 10 years. Thornfield Industries paid $78 million in fines and restitution. The case was considered a major victory for corporate accountability. I received $3.2 million as a whistleblower reward, 15% of the recovered funds. I used some of it to pay for Marcus's legal fees. He never acknowledged it. I see my mother occasionally. She lives in a small apartment now, working part-time at a grocery store. She's 67. She doesn't talk about my father, who she visits every other week at the federal facility 3 hours away. She told me once quietly over coffee, "He really thought he was helping you." I know. Does that matter? I thought about that question for a long time. It matters. But it doesn't change what happened. She nodded. "He asks about you. Every visit. Wants to know if you're okay. Tell him I'm fine. Are you?" I looked at my mother, aged beyond her years, struggling with poverty for the first time in her life, visiting her husband in prison every other week, estranged from one daughter and supporting another son who could barely look at her. "I'm fine," I repeated. "As I was." The Thornfield executives were in prison. Their fraud had been exposed. Their victims had received restitution. The company had been held accountable. My father was also in prison. My mother had lost everything. My brother had a criminal record. My sister hated me. Both things were true. I'd made the call that day at the storage unit knowing it would trigger this cascade. I'd reported the evidence compromise because it was the right thing to do, the legal thing to do, the thing I'd promised to do when I became a protected witness. I'd known my family would face consequences. I'd hoped they'd be minimal. They weren't. "Tell Dad I said hello," I told my mother. She nodded, finished her coffee and left. I sat alone in the cafe thinking about justice and family and the impossible choices whistleblowers face. Thinking about how doing the right thing can destroy everything you love. Thinking about the boxes of evidence I'd meticulously compiled over 3 years, most of them now pulp in a recycling facility, and the price my family paid for not understanding what they were destroying. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Thornfield CO appeals sentence, cites evidence issues. I deleted it without reading further. The case was over. The consequences had landed. My family had been shattered by their attempt to help me, and I'd been the one to ensure they faced the full weight of federal law for it. I finished my coffee, paid the bill and walked out into the afternoon sun. Somewhere my father was in a prison cell. My mother was struggling to afford groceries. My brother was trying to rebuild his life with a felony record. My sister was writing about how the government destroyed our family. And I was the whistleblower who'd made the call that set it all in motion. Both hero and destroyer. Vindicated and alone. Right and heartbroken. All of it true. All of it permanent. All of it the inevitable result of the choice I'd made years ago when I first noticed the fraud at Thornfield and decided to document it instead of looking away. Some prices are clear from the beginning. Others reveal themselves slowly in the faces of the people you love as they're led away in handcuffs for trying to help you. I got in my car and drove home, past the storage facility where this had all unfolded, past the recycling center that had unknowingly processed federal evidence, past the landmarks of a life that had fractured into before and after. The evidence was gone. The case was won. My family was destroyed. And I had been the one to make sure every consequence landed exactly where it should. Justice, it turns out, doesn't care about family dinner invitations or good intentions or fathers who just wanted their daughters to move on from the past. Justice cares about evidence. And I'd protected it the only way I could.